Peace, infinite waters diving deep once again. We are here in the art gallery talking about egos. Do you have a big ego? Let's just breathing in that good ass prana, baby. How to recognize an oversized ego. Someone asked, Ralph, yes, how do we know if we are making decisions from our ego? Like, how can we tell? Is it our ego? Is it our true self? Is it our ego? Is it our true self? Is it our ego? We ain't even had breakfast yet. Can I get a hello there? Okay, now I feel that so many of us have lived in our egos for a while on the planet, so we know what we're talking about when we say ego. Sigmund Freud came up with the psychoanalytic personality theory, where you had the id, which is our basic needs. You're really thirsty, so drink. Then you've got the ego, which is dealing with reality. Then you've got the super ego, which is adding morals, like don't do that, ego. It doesn't look good. Don't do it. Okay. Now, let me share with you what's helped me along my journey to see if I'm in my ego or if I'm not. And it starts with this. You can recognize your ego is growing and growing and growing, okay, when you are caught up into only serving yourself. Because the ego is all about surviving. And many of us on the planet are caught up in surviving. It's always me, and me. It's all about me, okay? Is that you out there? Is it always about you? Chances are you are living in your ego. Now, it happens when you don't have any empathy for anybody. You just like walk past people. You've become very apathetic, right? Where you're not even concerned about the needs of other people. And for a long time, I was almost falling in that state because I was like, look, I gotta survive. I gotta put food on the table, babies to feed, okay? I was having a mind trip back then, okay? So you gotta look out for that. If you are always just saying me, chances are that's your ego talking. Because the ego just wants for itself. Slow motion is like, What you've also got to recognize and look out for to see if it's an oversized ego that is coming over you. Are you always defensive? Like, hey, you're always defending your beliefs and you're like, hey, other people, back off. Chances are you've got an oversized ego growing because the ego is all about protecting itself. The ego fears vulnerability. It never wants to be exposed. So it's almost like, I say the ego is like a security guard, okay? And the ego is not bad. Certain times we need the ego. But you see, what happens when you've got loads of security guards everywhere? You aren't going to get anywhere, and you're going to get caught up in the illusion that this is normal. And that's what's happened to a lot of people on the planet. So what helped me along my journey was surrendering, to say, okay, I don't always have to defend my beliefs, okay? And it works wonders. When we talk of the 7-day vegan challenge, okay, if you are overindulging in food all the time, chances are you've got an oversized ego, because the ego really is all about being fed. The ego doesn't know when to stop. The ego is never satisfied. And many times we eat based on our emotions. Okay, so you got to look at your eating pattern, what kinds of foods you are consuming, to say, okay, is this making me more separate from the whole. Okay, many times I found that a lot of us who eat a lot of processed junk food, sometimes we don't even realize, but we are still under the spell of the ego, the lower desires. So what helped me along my journey was doing intermittent fasting. That's 1 day a week where I don't eat a lot. And now it's like my ego kind of begins to dissolve because I'm not feeding it. And you become more alert, you get more mental clarity when you fast. Okay, so many research studies have shown that fasting actually promotes greater states of wellness within the body. Intermittent fasting. And then just keep eating those strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, and things like that. Do you feel you always have to be right? Chances are that's your oversized ego and not your true self. Because you see, when we are small, we're growing up in the world. We don't really care when we're small about being right or wrong. It's only when we realize that, okay, I've got to be right all the time. Because if I'm not, then it means I don't know what I'm doing. So the ego is really all about always being right. The ego can never be wrong. If you are someone that always has to be right, you better have an ego check. So I realized for a while I was like that. I was like, I always have to be right. Then I said, no, I don't want to be right all the time. I want to be wrong sometimes. And it feels like a whole weight has been lifted off your shoulders. Because the ego creates a lot of stress for people. Most of our stress comes from the ego. Because the ego is all about being right all the time. And it's okay to not know. It's okay to not be right all the time. And that's what's helped me become my greatest version. Now, it's all about moving into the heart space, which a lot of us don't want to do on the planet because that means we have to surrender, which means we have to stop competing with one another. The ego always wants more. That's how to recognize an oversized ego. Sometimes you're like, okay, when I get this, I'm going to be happy. Then the ego's like, sorry, I got news for you. You're not going to be happy. And you're like, okay, I agree, ego. Then you're like, I want more. And it's never enough because the ego is never satisfied. So if you are in life and you're never feeling any contentment, chances are you are living in your ego a lot more than your heart space. And that's what I saw along my early journey because I was like, I always want more. And that's okay to set massive goals, dream big, but at the same time, are you just ending up in a bottomless pit where you are never satisfied? Okay, that's how to tell if you are using your ego or not. Now, if you are constantly comparing yourself to other people, chances are you have an oversized ego. Because the ego is all about comparison. Comparison leads to judgment. Judgment leads to suffering. Suffering leads to what? A miserable life. So certain times, it's happened to me before where I'm always comparing myself with you. Yes, you. And that person, and that person. And that's the ego. That's my ego coming into play. Because the ego is all about competing, comparing, analyzing. Then I realized that analysis is paralysis. Slow motion this side. It's natural to compare. The ego is not bad. You just got to become aware of it. And always put the heart first and the ego second. Not the other way around. So what helped me was to say, okay, instead of comparing myself to other people, I have to find my uniqueness first and foremost. Then I don't have to do that. I can admire people. Instead of comparing my lifestyle to theirs. We can all get along, baby. We can all get along, baby. Do you want people to succeed? Be honest. Let's just say a friend of yours gets that job they've always wanted. Would you be sincerely happy, or they're in an amazing relationship? Are you really happy for them? Well, chances are you're not in your ego. If you're not happy for them, if you dislike other people's success, chances are you've got an oversized ego. Because the ego has to always have the attention. It doesn't want to see other people succeed more than it does. Because the ego is all about being ahead of everybody else, not realizing that everybody is running or walking a different life path and race. Okay, there is no race actually. So what I had to realize along my journey is that I got to be happy for other people's success, because that doesn't take away from my own success. And a lot of us, we forget that. We don't want to see people rise. We're afraid of other people's greatness, and that keeps us locked into the ego mind. So you got to become aware of it and realize that there is enough to go around for every single person on planet Earth. Don't worry, you're not going to starve, right? We have become an attention-seeking society. I'm included in this. I'm no saint. I'm definitely not perfect. Chuck D from Public Enemy said that attention is the new currency. Attention is the new currency. Attention is the new currency. So it's no wonder that we've seen a rise in the ego, because everybody is out for other people's attention. And that's natural. But you got to ask yourself, is it coming from an authentic place? Or am I just doing it because I want other people's validation? The ego craves recognition and respect only from outside sources. And that's why a lot of people consumed by the ego, they become very miserable. Unless they learn, and this is the solution, to start realizing that it comes when you learn how to respect yourself. Self-respect. It's got to start within yourself. You can't keep seeking other people's validation, because that's what the ego loves. You got to start cultivating it from within. And many times we're also having conversations with people. Are you actually paying attention, or do you just want to talk all the time? You just want to speak? Chances are you got an oversized ego. Because the ego, when it's in conversation, is very one-sided. It's always about me. I'm going to talk about where I went and what I did, and forget about you. Who am I talking to? Only me. There is no you, right? So you got to check yourself. And that's what I started to realize along my early journey, that a great conversation is not only about speaking, it's about listening to saying, okay, you ate what? Right. You're going to make what? Oh, that's more friendly. Okay. So you got to be aware, if you are only having one-sided conversations, chances are you're using your ego mind. And what it really boils down to is that many of us who are always in the ego love to try to manipulate other people. We do it as a way to control other people, to control situations. Now check this out. I did this because many years ago I went for an interview, a job interview, and I was like trying to manipulate who I was, all right, the situation, so they could see me in a different way. That's the ego mind. So it's no wonder so many people have an ego mind, because we realize living on planet Earth, we're in like a kind of game, and many people manipulate the situation to make it work for them. So what helped me was moving into an environment where I didn't have to put on a mask, which is the ego. I could take it off, I could be myself, and I'm like, look, this is me. I'm not going to try and control every single situation. I'm letting go of control, but more so I'm saying, feels so good to be alive, baby. Can I get a hello? Have a beautiful day. For me, the ego is not bad. You've just got to learn when and how to use it and not let it govern your life. We are here in the marvelous art gallery having a great time. Infinite waters, diving deep once again. Stay well, stay healthy. Peace. You.